Well, the web revolution is definitely here. What's led to this new communication model and how is it altering the face of marketing? Much of the answer lies in changing technology. Everybody is online now. I'm sure all of you are. Millions of people around the globe surf the web, talk with their friends, of course, still watch TV and purchase products from traditional marketers, from internet-only marketers, and even from each other on their computers through tools like eBay, through their smartphones, through tablets. For example, at last report, Facebook had over 1.28 billion active users, more than the population of any country except China. All these users have the potential to connect with each other and to share their feedback, whether it's about how hard that statistics test was this morning, or where they bought a great new swimsuit for summer and how much they paid for it. That's why we're moving from this one-to-many traditional communications model that we discuss to the new world of many-to-many. Now, authors Charlene Lee and Josh Bernhoft refer to the changing communication landscape as the groundswell, a social trend in which people use technology to get the things they need from each other rather than from traditional institutions like corporations. In other words, today's consumers increasingly get their information on running shoes, restaurants to go to, cars, new bands, or even today's economics class lecture from one another rather than from the original source. Now, one of the terms we'll talk about is marketing buzz. Buzz is just word-of-mouth communications that consumers view as being authentic. And we talked about how that on the continuum that we see word-of-mouth being more authentic and more credible than things like at the other extreme, like advertising. When we talk about buzz marketing, this is where we're using high-profile entertainment or news that gets people to talk about the brand. The term viral marketing comes when we are talking about creating entertaining or informative messages that that will be passed along. And they're passed along, of course, primarily over what? Over the internet. People like to share their brand experiences. Firms like Apple even hire word-of-mouth marketing managers to try to encourage this kind of conversation. The many-to-many communications model relies on consumers like you to talk to one another about goods, about services, and organizations. Marketers think of buzz as everyday people helping their marketing efforts when they share their opinions with their friends and with their neighbors. The trick is to create buzz that works for you and not against you. Now, specifically, buzz marketing refers to specific marketing activities that are designed to create conversation, excitement, enthusiasm, in other words, buzz about a brand. And companies today are spending millions of dollars to create consumer positive buzz. Firms like Apple, we talked about, with their word-of-mouth marketing managers. And there's also even a word-of-mouth marketing association, and the membership roster includes most of the top consumer brand companies. So techniques to encourage consumers to spread information about companies and their products come under a lot of different names, such as word-of-mouth marketing, viral marketing, buzz marketing, and even evangelist marketing, a name that they borrowed from us as evangelists in our Christian faith. So social media is an important part of the updated communications model, and the term refers to internet-based platforms that allow users to create their own content and share it with others who access these sites. And of course, social media includes social networking sites like Facebook and Twitter and those kinds of things, as well as Pinterest, YouTube, both very important, and even things like Yelp or wikis like Wikipedia. And so these new formats are really transforming the way we interact with marketers. They kind of democratize the messages because they give individual consumers a real seat at the table where organizations are shaping their brand meanings and promoting themselves in the marketplace. So the good news is it makes it a lot easier for companies to tap into their brand evangelists and kind of get them to help spread the word. But there's a downside to it too. The flip side is, of course, that bad stuff also gets out a lot quicker and reaches people a whole lot faster as well. And so we have to be concerned with that as well. In fact, in one survey, 20% of respondents said they had used social media to share a negative experience with a brand or a service. Now, social networks we know as these sites that connect people with other people. And so successful networking sites ask their users to develop profiles of themselves so that those with similar backgrounds and interests can connect with each other and meet online. And so social networks such as Facebook, even for business people, LinkedIn, are some of the most popular sites on the internet, and they have millions of users. So what's in all this social networking for us as marketers? Is it just that we want to find out if somebody likes our product or not? Well, yes, but more. It gives us the ability to learn what consumers are thinking and what they're saying to each other about our brands and also about the competition. This information can really be invaluable, and then we can use it to help improve our advertising message or even to correct something that's wrong with our product. So if we get in as marketers and actually don't just observe, but also participate in the conversations, then we can reach influential people, even journalists or kind of the amateur journalists that are out there on the web today, who are the real opinion leaders. Most importantly, social networks provide firms the opportunity to create a brand community. Think about it as like a fan club of the past, a group of social network users who share an attachment to a particular product or to a brand. Members of that brand community interact with each other, sharing information about the brand or just expressing their affection, their love for it. As a result, the relationship between the consumer and the brand get even stronger and sometimes move from just liking a product to even being described as loving a product. Now, you've heard about things going viral. Well, when we think about it in terms of viral marketing, that's referring to marketing activities that aim to increase brand awareness or increase sales, hopefully by consumers passing a message along to their fellow consumers, hopefully in this exponential kind of fashion. Some of the early examples of this viral marketing were messages that were at the bottom of emails by Yahoo and Hotmail, where they advertised free email services. Well, today, most viral marketing tactics are a little more subtle than that. They usually consist of marketers' use of video clips, of interactive games, or other kinds of activities that consumers find really interesting or unique, and they want to share them with their friends, and they do that through digital technology. Now, many marketers recognize they can't create buzz by themselves, and so they recruit people off of social media to do this, loyal customers that can become what's called a brand ambassador or even a brand evangelist. And these are very zealous consumers, and they can be the best salespeople a company can ever find. And they often will work for free. I'm amazed at the time and effort that people will put in to writing a review on Amazon or some other website. They tend to be heavy users, they take a product seriously, they care a great deal about it, and they want it to succeed. What a wonderful thing to have consumers that will actually help you in the marketing process. Now, just as firms are discovering that there's a lot of different opportunities for buzz marketing, there are equally large opportunities for doing it in an unethical way, or at least in a questionable way. Here's some of the big concerns. Activities designed to deceive customers can be a big concern. Buzz works best when companies can put unpaid consumers in charge of creating their own messages. But there are actually some standards of conduct among the Word of Mouth Marketing Association that are focused on this need of its members to require their representatives to disclose their relationships or their identities to consumers and to disclose aspects of their commercial relationship with a marketer, such as some specific type of remuneration that they might get or other kind of consideration like they get to keep the product. Directing buzz marketing at children or teens can be a problem, and some critics say that buzz marketing should never do this because these younger consumers are more impressionable and they can be easier to deceive than adults. Buzz marketing activities that damage property can be a problem as well. And so you may have seen when Puma encouraged consumers to stencil its cat logo all over Paris. And such activities lead to damage or vandalism, and the company will ultimately have to pay for in one way or another, at least in bad PR. In addition, individual consumers could find themselves in trouble with the law, a problem that could ultimately backfire, damage the company image with bad stories. So it's just a bad idea. When we do that, we'll talk about maybe some other examples of that in class. Now, let's talk about direct marketing. Direct marketing is direct communication to a customer designed to generate some kind of a response. And so we'll look at these just very briefly here. Let's look at examples of this. Mail order is one of the ones that we have, and the one we know most prominently with this is use of catalogs, which are still very popular. And I'll show you an example of a company that still very effectively uses catalogs. And then, of course, direct mail, where messages go directly to you, perhaps with your name on it. Telemarketing is still used for those of you that answer the phone and don't screen it. And then direct response advertising, which we'll talk about and use some examples. And then a new, relatively new approach is what we call m-commerce, which stands for mobile commerce. And so this is where you'd get an advertisement or a prompt directly on your smartphone. Let's look at some examples or talk about these in a little more detail. Direct response advertising allows the consumer to respond by immediately contacting the provider with questions or hopefully with an order. And so direct response TV are short commercials, 30 minutes or even longer infomercials, and the home shopping networks, which are sort of like a 24-hour or 7x24 infomercial or set of infomercials. And typically, though, they're half-hour or hour-long commercials, and they sometimes are made, some of the old-fashioned ones, to look like a talk show with a lot of product demonstration elements to it. These infomercials have become famous in part because of Ron Popeil, who created a bunch of products under his Ronco company. We'll look at some examples of this. You may have some favorite infomercials that you can tell me about. Now, public relations is another component that's available to us in our promotion mix. And so both advertising and public relations involve communicating the company's key messages to constituents, but there are some differences between the two. Public relations, the good news about it is it's relatively low cost. You still have some cost of having people in your company or that you hire from the outside to create messages, but basically you're getting to put this information into publicly available sources such as a newspaper article or a TV news show. So it's relatively low cost. It tends to have fairly high credibility because it comes under the mantra of news. And then there's also, though, from the downside, kind of poor message control. There's no guarantee that the way we write it will be the way that the story is actually told. And of course, it can also be kind of difficult to track the results. And so often public relations efforts target more than just consumers. We use things like annual reports that give important information to stockholders and to investment analysts. And we may have other communications that target members of a legislature where we're trying to influence some government regulation that might be important to us. From a brand marketing standpoint, though, proactive PR efforts are usually confined to publicity that's of key importance to us. But publicity is, by definition, any form of unpaid communication about an organization that appears in the mass media. One function that's very unique to public relations comes in the form of crisis management. And so crisis management is the process of managing a firm's reputation when some kind of negative event threatens the organization's image. Think about the oil spill with British Petroleum. There was a lot of crisis management that was going on then. But let's talk about some other crises that we've seen and try to understand what has happened and what kind of steps the PR folks take. Perhaps some of you are PR majors and can help to educate the rest of us on this. Now, when you're putting together a public relations campaign, you have a multi-step process that includes clearly developing PR objectives, executing a plan to fulfill the objectives, and then measuring whether or not those objectives were met. And then you see that there's a variety of PR objectives that you might have, and then there's various activities that you undertake in an attempt to make sure those objectives are set. Now, when you compare PR to other marketing communications forms, it's been proven kind of difficult to develop metrics to gauge the effectiveness of publicity. So this portion of the campaign process can be particularly challenging. A lot of PR activities occur in conjunction with other marketing communications activities. For example, publicists for the firm may issue a press release or hold some kind of a news conference to announce the winner of a major contest, sales promotion, or the signing of a famous celebrity endorsement or an advertising spokesperson. So that's part of our advertising. So you can see all these things need to be coordinated together. Internal PR activities may target employees via newsletters, email, even closed-circuit TV that employees can watch. PR staffers will often be involved in writing speeches for corporate executives. That may be something that you might be interested in participating in if you're a strong writer. And often PR staffers will serve as spokespeople for the firm. A real fun area that I know a lot of you would be interested in is getting involved in sponsorships and special events. At the company that I used to work for, Teradata, we did an annual event where we invited people to come to the Masters Golf Tournament, customers and prospects. And I got to go to the Masters Golf Tournament several times. The marketing people, the PR people that worked on this, they would be involved with this, did a lot of work, but also got to be involved with a really world-class event. Now, what is guerrilla marketing? Well, guerrilla marketing, just as it may sound, involves kind of ambushing customers with promotional content, usually in places where they don't expect to encounter such messages. Organizations that have very small advertising budgets have to be innovative, and often they have to be cheap and find those ways to capture consumers' attention. And guerrilla marketing exposes these consumers to promotional content in, as we say, places they're not expecting. And so this might be things like putting advertising stickers on fruit, for example. Sometimes we have ambient advertising that's a popular form of guerrilla marketing. This describes the placement of messages in non-traditional media, like on the backs of garage and theater receipts, screens attached to the back of a supermarket carts, signs on elevator doors, or the ever popular signs that are in bathrooms or in bars and restaurants and that kind of thing. Another type of guerrilla marketing is to stage some kind of a flash mob. That's become a popular thing now, where you have tens or hundreds of people that suddenly launch into some well-rehearsed dance routine, and then they might have t-shirts on to advertise something. So big companies are buying into this guerrilla marketing idea in a big way. And so we'll talk about maybe some examples of that, of how they do it to promote new products that they have. Now, personal selling continues to be a very effective way to sell certain kinds of products, but it's the most expensive form of marketing communications. However, the personal touch aspect of this one-on-one kind of communications is essential for developing relationships between businesses. Also, salespeople provide information that comes back into the firm. They can be kind of like an arm of your marketing research regarding what customers think, what competitors are doing, what concerns clients might have. It's particularly effective for products that are technically complex, like the Teradata systems and software that I used to sell, or they're too expensive to just market via mass media or by other methods. Intangible products like insurance are also more likely to be promoted via personal selling. So selling is one of the major career paths that a lot of students take following graduation, particularly marketing majors, but not just marketing majors. And in our selling seminar, we're going to talk more about this, as I hope that I can kind of whet your appetite for the potential of a career in selling. On a cost per contact basis, as we say, selling is the most expensive form of communication, but it can be a very effective approach to do it because it is a much more intimate kind of way of selling. So what are some of the factors that influence a firm's emphasis on personal selling? Well, you see a lot of these here, and we'll just hit some of these lightly here as you study this chart. Personal selling is often essential if firms seek to land a commitment of some type, such as a contract or purchase. But what's its role in the overall marketing mix? Well, you can kind of see this in this chart here. It lists the various factors that make personal selling more or less important in the promotional mix when you compare it to things like advertising or some of the other elements of the promotional mix. Obviously, a strong focus on personal selling is needed when a firm is engaging in that push strategy. Remember the difference between the push and the pull strategy, because this strategy, with a push strategy, it dictates that sales and trade promotions be targeted at wholesalers, retailers, or other members of the distribution channel. You still may do some advertising, of course, but the push strategy expects the retailer to bear the brunt of the efforts meant to reach that ultimate consumer. You also want to see that personal selling is critical when the selling firm interacts with upper level management, sometimes executive management. I used to call on C-levels, chief executive officers, chief marketing officers in the client firm, and they expect to have that personal touch and professional kind of contact. And certainly when there's negotiations that are required concerning price or trade-ins, that kind of thing. It's also extremely helpful when the buying firm is undertaking that new task kind of a buying situation that we talked about before. Because personal selling is so expensive, it tends to be restricted to just larger customers or when for whom the high dollar sales volume will justify the time and expense that's associated with personal selling. So look over this chart further and make sure that you understand some of the key reasons why we might employ personal selling in our promotional mix. Now there's a couple of key kinds of selling approaches. The old style mode of personal selling we call transactional selling because it was really focused on the transaction, meaning that the effort was devoted to basically making the sale at any cost, and you really didn't put much effort into trying to understand what the customer's needs were or what would be best for the customer. Nothing really was sacred. Salespeople would lie to clients about the product's capability, and they put a lot of pressure on potential customers to try to sign the deal. There was very little attempt to build any kind of relationship with the customers, and customers who were subjected to these kinds of tricks and tactics used by some manipulative salespeople often ended up feeling resentful about it towards the manufacturer, and generally they were less satisfied with the experience. The new and more modern way is what we call relationship selling. Today, B2B salespeople focus on building relationships with their clients. They focus their efforts on understanding those customer needs and then presenting the product or service solution that can best satisfy those needs in a manner that offers what we call a win-win solution, where both parties, the customer and the seller, wins. There's follow-up usually by the salesperson. That's extremely important. And sales people train users of the equipment in some cases. They handle complaints. They check regularly with the client to be certain that they're completely satisfied. And so the benefit of this relationship building in this manner is that it creates satisfied customers, hopefully, who return for repeat business. Now, the proliferation of social media provides us with new opportunities to understand the likes and the dislikes of our customers and to more effectively communicate with them. And it also offers us opportunities, of course, for abuse of private information. So we have to approach it and use it in an ethical kind of way. So I'd like for you to be ready to discuss the pros and cons of using this new set of communications tools that are available to us. We're also going to learn more about the traditional but still widely used tools of direct marketing, public relations, and personal selling. And of course we're going to have a special focus on selling in our selling seminar that you'll see on your schedule. So go ahead and take your last quiz here, read the chapter, and I'll look forward to our discussions this week in class.